Hello there, Code Monkeys. I want to talk today about what a lot of people are talking about today, which is my experience with 9/11. Now, I think that pretty much everyone, at least in the U.S., on one level or another, has a struggle of some kind involved in 9/11. Whether you are a family member of someone that was caught in the tragedy, or whether you were involved in it yourself in some way. I think that everyone kind of has a different story to tell when it comes to 9/11. And for me, the difficulty of 9/11 was not so much the event itself, but having to sort of take in information from the people around me and attempt to understand 9/11 in a way that is deep and meaningful. For a lot of people, 9/11 was a really big shock to the system. It was an event that changed the world as they knew it. But for me, it really never was that. I was only 12 years old when 9/11 took place, and so when I was 12, my world was still very small. I mean, like there was my school, there was my family. I hadn't yet started to really think about the world at large a whole lot, and so the only world that I know, at least in the larger sense of the word world, is the world post 9/11. I don't really know. Personally, anyway. I mean, I know on a historical level, but I don't know personally, really, the world before 9/11. And so at the time, for me, it was difficult for me to understand why people felt the way that they felt, because for me, it was not a big world-changing event. I felt very sort of detached from it at that age. I didn't really fully understand it. And so for me, the challenge of 9/11 was not so much understanding 9/11 itself, it was understanding what 9/11 was to other people. I can remember being at school and hearing about the terrorist attacks and having the teachers in very strange emotional places that you never really saw them in at that age as your teachers. I can remember them trying to sort of put the event in a sort of context for us. I can remember going home and my parents asking if I wanted to talk about what I had seen. And at the age that I was, I really didn't know how to express anything about it. I didn't know what to talk about. And I think what sort of helped me to start beginning to understand the impact that it had on other people's lives was a television show called American Chopper. In 2003, the guys at OCC, they built a bike, the fire bike, as a tribute to the men and the women that had died in the 9/11 tragedy. Specifically, the firemen who had given their lives in order to save people from that tragedy. And listening to the way that the guys on that show talked about the event, and watching how much everyone on the show really kind of poured their heart and soul into that bike, and the symbolism involved in the act of making this bike and what was on the actual bike itself, and the fact that there was a piece of steel from the actual World Trade Center tower welded onto this bike. There was a lot of symbolism there, and I think I really started to kind of understand for the first time what the event meant to some people. And I think that the biggest challenge that I've had is that at some point I had to kind of reconcile the fact that I will never really truly understand what this tragedy meant to the world at large, because as I've said, the only world that I really know is a post 9/11 world. It's difficult for me to connect to 9/11 on a personal, emotional level. And so at some point I had to reconcile this fact, and I had to understand that I was never really going to be able to have a personal connection to 9/11. So the way that I have been able to just sort of form a connection to the event is not so much to try and have a personal emotional connection with the events of 9/11, but to have a personal and emotional connection with people who do understand it and who do have a better sense of how the world changed, and to listening to people who have had more deep and personal experiences with the event. For a long time, I felt really terrible about not having an emotional connection to 9/11, because I knew that it was because I was too young when it happened to really have formed a deep emotional connection to the story and to really understand it. So what I've done with 9/11 is not so much, as I've said, try to have a personal connection to the tragedy, but I listen to people. I listen to other people's stories. I listen to other people's thoughts. I listen to other people's experiences with 9/11, and through that I don't so much gain a personal connection to the event as I do gain a personal connection to the people who were there and to the people who understand it much better than I do or ever could. And that is my own personal way of sort of trying to honor the event and try to get as close to it as I possibly can. So I would like to invite anyone who is seeing this to make a video response or to make a comment and just tell me what your experience was with 9/11, how you personally connect to the event, or how you personally connect to the people who were there for this event. Because to me, what makes 9/11 meaningful is not the event itself, but how it affected other people and how the world reacted to it, and how people have had to move on, and how it has continued to affect people even to this day. So I would really like to hear your stories. I would really like to hear your opinions. So communicate those to me however you would like to. And until then, all I really have to say is I will see you tomorrow.